4 wonderful days of sharing experiences together, of learning together, guided by our dear counselors. And without much further ado, I'd like to invite dear Councillor Rachel to make some opening remarks. Councillor.
Allah Hapa, dear friends. It's always nice to be back home. Although Joy has introduced my colleagues, I still need to introduce them again. So, Mr. Serrano, my colleague, and also the 2 directors from the development organization, Debe and Sina, we bring you joy and greetings from Horerad, especially from the Universal House of Justice. When the teaching center met with the House of Justice recently, they said, assure the friends of our prayers in the holy shrines for the success of your deliberations during the gathering and what will follow thereafter. So as you also go back to the field, you go with the prayers of the Universal House of Justice. Also, receive greetings and prayers from the International Teaching Center. Since these gatherings were announced, Teaching Center has been going to the shrines every Monday, and we have been offering prayers for you. So hopefully, all what we shall do during the conference and thereafter, you'll be accompanied by these prayers. Many thanks to the National Spiritual Assembly of Kenya for arranging this institutional gathering and making us all feel welcome. The way things have been arranged, the way we have been treated, the way we are eating, the way we are doing things, it's all because of the arrangements that the National Assembly has made. So as Joy said, we see your radiant faces despite the long distances, particularly from the friends from Uganda. We understood you arrived this morning. We hope you have had breakfast, and if you haven't, we hope you can have a good one at break time. For your information, 4 gatherings like these ones have already happened last week. And as we are having ours here, another 3 are happening. And we shall have another 34 that will happen until mid of May. Dear friends, in its 30th December message, the Universal House of Justice quotes the following from Baha'u'llah. The purpose for which mortal men have from utter nothingness stepped into the realm of glory is that they may work for the betterment of the world and live together in concord and harmony. So as you can appreciate, all our efforts, even when we have come here, is to achieve this goal. So as we continue with our consultations in the next 4 days, let us not forget or doubt the spiritual nature of the enterprise we are involved, and that the application of divine remedy that Baha'u'llah brought is the only solution to the world's problems and challenges. We are all witnessing the forces of disintegration in all arenas, and our task is to support the irresistible processes of integration that will bring the kingdom of God on earth. We must demonstrate in our deeds and words a different pattern of life and service imbued with spiritual principles, centered around the conviction of the oneness of humanity. This remains the responsibility of every individual who has recognized Baha'u'llah. Before I continue with what lies ahead of us for the next 4 days, I would like to take you back to the Universal House of Justice, or how the Universal House of Justice has described the unfolding story of the endeavors of the Baha'i world, as it did in its letter of 28 November 2023 message to the Baha'is of the world, reflecting on the first 100 years of the formative age since the passing of beloved Abdu'l-Baha in 1921. In that message, the House of Justice mentions the promise of Abdu'l-Baha, using the analogy of transforming a rocky patch in his garden into a verdant garden, when he stated the following: "Behold, what the spirit of devotion is able to achieve. This flourishing place was a few years ago but a heap of stones, and now it is verdant with foliage and flowers. My desire is that after I am gone, the loved ones may all arise to serve the divine cause, and praise God, so it shall be ere long. Will appear those who shall bring life to the world." The House of Justice then mentions and reminds us that at the end of the heroic age, the question was how to organize the administrative affairs of the community to respond to the requirements of the defined plan. Through the guidance of the beloved guardian, arrangements developed and capacity was built to carry on the work of the faith at a greater level of breadth and complexity under the direction of the Universal House of Justice since 1963. Then, with the marked progress of learning, more questions emerged before the beginning of the 4-year plan in 1996 regarding the progress of the course. And this led, after the 4-year plan, to the series of 5-year plans to Risk Fund 2021, focused on advancing the process of entry by troops. The House of Justice then mentions a crucial capacity that has enabled all what we have achieved to happen. It is said, it is this growing capacity to resolve complex questions and then to take on still more complex questions that characterizes the process of learning that is propelling progress of the faith, which implies we just don't do things. We put in process a learning process. We want to know how to go about it, but we cannot just do things, but we want to learn how to do it. We are eager to learn. In that same message, the House of Justice mentions that this conscious grasp of the processes of learning and its extension worldwide, from the grassroots to the international arena, are among the finest fruits of the first century of the formative age. Friends, our beloved House of Justice tells us that we have the capacity to deal with anything before us and also figure out the path forward. And that those who arise will be remembered in the... Sorry, I missed. So in the same message, the House of Justice mentions that this conscious grasp of the processes of learning and its extension worldwide, from the grassroots to the international arena, are among the finest fruits of the first century of the formative age. So, and then the House is assuring that we can actually deal with anything in front of us. Now, with this century-long trajectory, whatever I have shared about the 28th, because the House of Justice talked about the formative age in that message, just like the Guardian did with the formative age, with the heroic age, we can better appreciate the significance of the current stage we find ourselves in the midst of the 9-year plan. 4 years ago, in his message of 30th December 21, the House of Justice set out the provisions of the 9-year plan. If you recall, Mr. Saran and I actually did come here and we talked about the 9-year plan, and now we are here again to talk about the second phase of that plan. So as you recall, in that message, the House of Justice said it is the first major undertaking in a series of plans that will encompass a quarter of a century, focused on a single aim, the release of the society-building power of the faith in ever greater measures. The House of Justice compared this plan to 10-year crusade in terms of its scope and complexity, and that those who arise will be remembered in the same way as those who arose to win the cause of the crusade. To understand and to be familiar with the provisions of the plan, at that time the councillors gathered in Holyrood to consult on its implications and the task ahead, and then traveled across the world to explore these provisions with the friends and institutions in every country and region. And the plan was launched with more than 10,000 gatherings, bringing together not only Baha'is, but also many from the wider society who shared a commitment to working on the betterment of the world. We are now gathered here in these institutional meetings as we prepare to enter the second phase of the plan. You are here to reflect on how the 9-year plan is unfolding in your regions and countries. You will be seeking to understand where we are at the start of the plan, where we are now, how we got here, and where we need to go next. So those are the reflections you'll be having in your breakout sessions or even in the plenary. Thus, how do we consider the 30th December 2021? The House of Justice said it to continue to be our primary point of reference. Though we have this new message, but still 30th December 2021 is the main message. All what we are supposed to do in the 9 years is there. But what we have now is like kind of a reflection of where we are after 4 years. So in that message of 21, the House of Justice called for a swift advance in diffusing the right of Baha'u'llah revelation ever more widely and extending the roots of his faith ever more deeply into the soil of society. And rapid progress was required in the 9-year plan towards the goal of this series of plans, to establishing intensive program of growth in all the clusters in the world by the end of the series, 2046. In that regard, the House of Justice emphasizes the importance, the immense value to a region of a cluster where the third milestone has been passed. Noting that once the threats in a given cluster have developed the range of capacities that such progress implies and the means to disseminate insights and share experience about the community building endeavors are in place, then a swift acceleration of the work of expansion and consolidation in surrounding clusters becomes possible. With this in mind, it is imperative that during the 9-year plan, the process of growth reach this level of intensity in at least one cluster in every region or country, which the House of Justice constitutes to one of the plan's chief objectives, and it will call for the concentrated effort of many consecrated souls. I'm sure this concept of a third milestone and how it works with clusters around it is something that you are going to reflect, because the House has also captured how it happens in the current message. But since that time, valuable experience has been gained as a result of efforts to raise more third milestone clusters, as well as attention direct towards a third milestone in every country and region. So the question then, the question is, how are we actually doing this duty of having more third milestone clusters and ensuring that we have at least one third milestone in every region or in country that we have, because it's the basis in which we can be able to progress. Now, coming to the current message of 31st December, the message, because I don't know how you can summarize it yourself, but how I can summarize it myself of what it contains, I would say the message offers a wide and complex picture of what the Baha'i world is doing. Actually, it's kind of a progress report. But at its core, it describes a process of running, a process that transforms people, enables a community to take charge of its own development, and does so under the loving guidance of the institutions. If you note, this meeting is institutional meeting, so it's actually addressing to you. The institutions may carry many responsibilities, but at the heart of their work is one central task: to administer this process of running and to connect people to one another as they move forward together. When the message turns to the role of the individual, its essential message becomes clearer even. Each of us is called to align our pursuits with the will of God, to respond to what God desires for humanity, and to walk that path in the company of others who are also running like us. And as this process unfolds, it will involve a whole range of complex conversations. Conversations that help read the reality, build unity, clarify aims, and nurture the capacity of a population to run, to consult, and to act together. I'm sure you can capture all what I'm saying, because this is what you are doing. If you look at your third milestone clusters, this is what you are witnessing. But one important area the House of Justice has noted in this message is that many third milestone clusters are now acting as the reservoirs of knowledge and resources to the clusters that surround them, a pattern that has been vital for the progress of growth everywhere, and that must be strengthened and widely replicated. So the whole purpose of having a third milestone, and which is strengthened, is to be able to learn and to be able to disseminate to the clusters around it. It's a very strategic way of thinking. This will therefore require the threads in many more clusters to cultivate the capacities needed to intensify a program of growth, which is an urgent need if each national community is to fulfill its projections it is set for itself at the beginning of the plan. You know, the House did not give you a goal. You sat and decided this is what we are going to achieve. The only goal the House gave you is to have an intensive program of growth by 2046. So whatever you are endeavoring to have now is what you set for yourselves. And if you follow the running process of having this kind of a third milestone, which acts as a reservoir and is helping others around it, it's going to help you to achieve the goal you set for yourselves. So then, where are we now in East Africa? I hope my figures are correct. I'm sure you have your own figures, but I also have mine, which you yourself have supplied to the Holy Land. At the beginning of the 9-year plan, you were working, that means the whole of East Africa, including the Indian Ocean, brothers and sisters. You are working with 500 clusters, of which 395 had intensive programs of growth, and 155 had passed the third milestone. And as of biannual of October 2025, you had increased the number of clusters we are working from 500 to 833, like about 300 more you added, of which 527 had become intensive. And programs, and 259 had passed the third milestone. It's quite a progress. We also had 6 countries or regions or countries that did not have a cluster that had passed the third milestone. I must say, for the last 4 years, you have only managed to have Seychelles to have all their 3 clusters, because Seychelles is a small country. It has only 3 clusters. But by that time, at least they had brought it up to the second milestone. But for the last 4 years, you have helped Seychelles to at least have all their 3 clusters to become that milestone. But of course, with the help of Tanzania. However, we still have Comoros, Eritrea, Mayotte, South Sudan, Reunion, and South Sudan, which are yet to have that milestone, which the House asked us to work on. So, given these countries still need to advance, it seems we have to, it's a very important area, because we don't want to go to the second milestone or go up to the end of the plan without helping this country. And it's understandable, because these are countries where there was nothing actually before, particularly Comoros. Comoros was discovered in this 9-year plan, and it worked very well. So we really have a lot of work to do to assist them also to help. And then we shall have in the whole of East Africa, there is no country or region that doesn't have a that milestone. So this is the work before you. And of course, you also have projections which you have made for yourselves. They are quite ambitious. But then those ones, I leave them to you, because you have to look at it and look at your capacity and see how you can tackle it out. But I must say, without very strong third milestones, which act as reservoirs, it's difficult to imagine how you can achieve the goal. And also to remind ourselves, there are only 20 cycles in the second phase of the plan up to this one, 2031, and we want to ensure notable progress is made each cycle. So, dear friends, we have achieved a lot of numerical goals, but that's not all. We are not the type of people who chase numbers. We also think about the transformation of those people who we are working together. So there have been many qualitative advances in both learning how to learn as communities, institutions, and individuals. For example, at the level of social transformation, in many of the settings, we have been laboring to apply the teachings to improve spiritual and material prosperity, as well as to support intellectual development. I'm sure some of your clusters can relate to this. It is especially heartwarming to see how the institutions of this zone has responded to the aspirations of young people, while helping them to maintain a coherent life of service. Not only have you helped them to achieve the academic desire, but you have also helped them to have this coherent life of service. This has been through, one, strengthening the institute process that remains that potent instrument at the heart of a community progress. The second element which has helped you to work with these young people is the implementation of the Preparation for Social Action program, and using its materials in very creative ways. Not just delivering the program, but how you have done it in a very creative way has helped you to help these young people. And the third one is holding seminars of ISGP that has empowered many of these young people. At the start of the plan, we could not have imagined that we shall have so many young people going through this program, and now the desire for education and to continue serving has really increased. It is heartwarming to see also through those who have gone through the ISGP and PSA and the Institute programs, many who have been touched by all the educational programs. You look at them, you see people who have gained confidence in themselves, they radiate hope and inspire others, and also accompany them to follow the same path. So many people who did not know, what do I do with my life? But through the efforts of the institutions to work with these young people and exposing them to these materials and study them, now we can see villages, regions, where we have quite a number of young people who have been inspired by this, and many have joined. Another significant learning in several settings in this zone is how the local spiritual assemblies have emerged as a voice of moral authority, a beacon of light to the local leaders and other social actors who turn to it for consultation and guidance. And this guidance and interactions have infused a fresh spirit and affected processes of community life, such as education, agriculture, and public health. And in such settings, we see girls and women are able to find their rightful place and are supported to do so. We also see new families, some in this room, emerge from all these interactions, showing us a few glimmerings of the new conception of a family that the House of Justice refers in its letter of 19th March 2025. Dear friends, for the next few days, as we share our experiences, we will be drawing from the message which highlights most of the insights that have emerged. That means we shall share our experiences, but as we do it, we look at the message and we see where we are. So this afternoon, during the breakout sessions, you will begin consultations on what has been learned through the efforts of the communities, a conversation which will extend to consulting about on the insights arising from the efforts of institutions, and followed by those emerging from those of individuals. So, dear friends, to conclude, this will no doubt be an intense period. The 4 days are going to be intense. We may become tired. We may have logistical challenges. Lucy is laughing. She knows what I'm talking about. Let us be patient with each other, support each other, and draw joy from the company of our spiritual brothers and sisters. Let us be inspired by remembering the efforts of Abdu'l-Baha, who, foregoing his own physical comfort, tended to the needs of his father, the Holy Family, the believers, and in time, the world from a young age. He would draw on the support of the concourse on high, but also on the love and unity of the friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to dear Mama Rachel. We will now invite the readers. We are going to read the 31st December message and then the 4th January message. So we'll begin with the 31st December. And I think if the readers are ready, they can move in front and read for us the message.
The Universal House of Justice, 31st December 2025. It's in page 45 of our booklet, page 41. I read. The Universal House of Justice, 31st December 2025, to the Conference of the Continental Boards of Councillors, Dearly loved friends, the first phase of the 9-year plan has cast a light on the Baha'i community's considerable strengths. The unprecedented energy and determination with which the plan was launched, at over 10,000 gatherings of Baha'is and interested friends, quickly raised awareness of its objectives and special character. Swift action followed. We anticipate that by Rizwan, there will be a cluster where the third milestone has been passed in around half of the 160 countries and regions where at the start of the plan, still no such cluster existed, a dramatic accomplishment. Valuable experience has been gained as a result, not least through the dedicated efforts of an impressive number of individuals who arose as part of a coordinated strategy of pioneering. At the same time, particular attention has been directed in all countries towards third milestone clusters, and consequently, the frontiers of learning have advanced considerably, and the society building power of the faith is becoming more apparent. Many of these clusters are acting as reservoirs of knowledge and resources to the clusters that surround them, and this is proving vital to the process of growth everywhere. Indeed, the rapid movement of clusters past the first, second, and third milestones requires that this pattern be strengthened and widely replicated. For gratified as we are by the progress made, it is evident that a most formidable task lies ahead if each national Baha'i community is to fulfill the aspirations for the movement of clusters that it set for itself when the plan began. There is an urgent need to cultivate more broadly the capacities that are required to intensify a program of growth. The primary point of reference for this work and for all the work of the 9-year plan will of course continue to be our 30th December 2021 message. But within these few pages, we will seek to present a number of insights that have emerged from the efforts of communities, institutions, and individuals as they have put the plan into effect.
In clusters and in neighborhoods and villages where notable progress has occurred, no matter from what starting point, an essential factor has been the capacity of the friends at the grassroots to learn together, combining insights gained from their own experience with those of advanced communities nearby or further afield, without any sense of applying a fixed formula. Although the fundamental features of a program of growth, its aims, its guiding principles, and its basic instruments are the same everywhere, growth is an organic process, not a mechanical one. In such a process, progress depends at each point on maintaining a clear understanding of the priorities that pertain to a place. And as we emphasized in our message to your 2021 conference, reading evolving realities and adapting approaches suited to local conditions.
The third milestone is a measurement of a journey whose beginnings are well understood. Once it is passed, clusters where progress has been consolidated can be seen to share important features. The Institute's programs are being supported by a relatively substantial and expanding pool of human resources. Effort is being made to enable more neighborhoods and villages to sustain intense activity There is a capacity to embrace large numbers and manage increasing complexity through both formal and informal arrangements. Crucially, in these clusters, consistent attention is being given to sustaining effective cycles so that there is a regular pulse of study, consultation, action, and reflection through which the community enhances its capacity to grow and to contribute to the advancement of the society to which it belongs. These cycles include periods of particular intensity, an injection of energy that is propelling the engagement of the widest possible circle of friends, community undertakings such as family festivals, junior youth camps, service projects, arts endeavors, and collective teaching initiatives are proceeding according to their own respective rhythms. Reflection spaces bring together many friends, and the use of such spaces is thoughtful and deliberate. There is awareness that the quality and utility of reflection is measured by the purposeful action arising from it. From these clusters, resources flow to surrounding clusters to help the friends there make accelerated progress.
We have observed with particular interest how a pronounced community spirit can increasingly be felt among all those involved in the pattern of activity in third milestone clusters, even when it's not very strong in the wider society. It is often expressed as a feeling of belonging and a sense of common endeavor and mutual support. These and other advances at the level of culture are becoming especially evident in the clusters centers of intense activity, not only where participation can be measured as a significant proportion of the population, but in any neighborhood or village where large numbers are attracted to the programs and activities of the community. There is a rise too in various collaborative arrangements which are doing much to build or reshape a shared social identity and collective purpose. These arrangements include the groups of families and households we mentioned in 2021, and also other natural groupings such as women or youth, farmers or educators, and animators or children class teachers, often with a supportive network of friends. Groups of this kind set about organizing their own efforts to improve some aspect of the life of the community, and they promote broader participation in those efforts. In other words, they are helping the growth and development of the community to become self-perpetuating, and they are doing so without the need of new layers of administrative structure. This is consequential. It demonstrates the emerging capacity of the community to be a visible protagonist in the plan. Buttressed by the full confidence and loving guidance of the institutions, the community is steering the trajectory of its own development with creativity and ingenuity, and exploring how the principles contained in Baha'u'llah's revelation can be applied to the issues that confront it within its immediate reality.
It is no surprise that the community-based initiatives we described to you in 2021 often proceed from the collaborative arrangements mentioned above. These modest but sustained initiatives of social action represent an area of endeavor which of course has been implicit in a program of growth from the beginning. Even in the earliest institute courses, capacity is built for actions that contribute to the betterment of the world and for meaningful conversations on matters of social significance. In the last 4 years, the number of community-based initiatives emerging out of the activities of the plan has increased considerably. Some have also come about as a result of the encouragement, training, and assistance of a Baha'i-inspired organization. All these initiatives are more likely to arise in places where the community building process has advanced notably, and we appreciate the support that you and your auxiliaries, as well as local spiritual assemblies, have given to such initiatives. The conditions that enable this to appear and flourish in different settings around the world are being actively explored by the Baha'i International Development Organization, including how, in time, some of these initiatives develop into community-based organizations.
At the heart of a community's progress, of course, is the institute process. So long as the capacity to work with large numbers in a cluster is still being built, it is natural for the efforts of the institute to be focused almost exclusively on raising up human resources that can carry out specific acts of service. But over time, after the third milestone has been passed and particular centers of intense activity have gained strength, the Institute will also devote more serious thought to the systematic and effective delivery of the programs it offers from childhood to adulthood, and the propagation of these programs in other parts of the cluster. Classes for children in all the grades begin to be introduced. The number of texts being studied by junior youth groups increases, and the participation in both programs is sustained year on year, all of which gives these undertakings a higher degree of formalization. Often these advances are relying on the service rendered by a growing cohort of youth. The Institute's efforts are gradually being complemented by additional education endeavors for the development of our population, such as programs utilizing Baha'i-inspired materials, as well as courses available in the wider society, or even in some places, a community school. In our 30th December 2021 message, we expressed the hope that attention would be given to helping young people access educational opportunities. And we have been pleased to see this need being met in a variety of ways, including after-school tutoring and assistance for youth wishing to enter higher education. As a broad educational path begins to take shape, our community feels a greater responsibility to stimulate and encourage each of its members, especially the young, to advance along it in pursuit of spiritual and intellectual growth.
We have noted the benefits that come from raising awareness in the wider society of the educational value of the Institute's program. This has involved efforts to reach out to the parents and relatives of children and junior youth, and also to officials and senior educators with whom Baha'is are interacting. Such efforts are broadening the support given to Institute activities by the wider society, including by public institutions and agencies, as well as traditional leaders. Indeed, in clusters where the Baha'i community's endeavors have achieved a significant level of visibility and respect, it is not unusual for figures in authority in local government, public services, and civil society to reach out for insight and collaboration. The believers and the local spiritual assemblies that represent them are open to working alongside the institutions of society and welcome such contact, while remaining vigilant to avoid becoming entangled in politics. At times, we have seen how the friends' relationship with the organs of local government expands beyond collaboration to embrace a sense of shared mission focused on the advancement of society, a people moving as one. In more and more places, the generality of the inhabitants are coming to regard the local assembly as being theirs as well, and they see the light that shines from it.
In 2021, we highlighted the possibilities that can be realized when Baha'i activity becomes prevalent in a place. And although the settings where this has occurred remain relatively modest in number, they are a steadily growing phenomenon. These are specific places within a cluster where the society building power of the faith is at its most visible. Here, the workings of the plan are becoming embedded in the everyday life of a people in ways that cannot be easily measured or described in their totality. In their collective efforts and deliberations, the friends in such locations are increasingly occupied with cultivating spaces in which people consult and share knowledge derived from both science and religion, and find ways to apply that knowledge to family development, education, economic activity, public health, and other fundamental processes of community life, infusing them with a fresh spirit. Given the far-reaching implication of what is occurring, the term program of growth no longer does full justice to such developments. Although in other parts of the cluster, growth might still be at an early stage. Here, where the level of participation in Baha'i activities is so high, a new reality is coming into view as the Baha'i community's relationship with society evolves. Bright horizons beckon.
In the natural environment, combinations and connections create vibrancy and a new life. Likewise, a flourishing process of learning arises from countless formal and informal interactions and their emergent properties. This process is characterized by a free-flowing, uninterrupted exchange of insights, experience, and ideas among the friends at the grassroots. But it does not end there. It continues to unfold at the regional and national levels and beyond. And learning at each level is fostered by the dynamic discussions that take place in spaces created for reflection on action. These discussions draw on lessons arising from the efforts of the global Baha'i community within the plan's framework as well as conclusions derived from the analysis of patterns emerging locally. Of course, these discussions are also shaped by the institutions and agencies serving at each level. For while individuals, communities, and institutions all have a contribution to make, it is the institutions of the faith that are ultimately charged with tending to this entire ecosystem of learning. An essential requirement is to ensure that there are adequate arrangements in place, both institutional and less formal, to enable it to thrive, and that all those involved in the learning process are connected by loving relationships imbued with a spirit of humility and magnanimity.
The capacity of institutions and agencies to foster a process of learning is closely connected with their capacity to administer the work effectively and efficiently. As the various lines of actions in a locality multiply and interact, local assemblies have increasingly been able to meet the need for coordination and planning. The assemblies often share this responsibility with cluster agencies, and together they ensure that advice, resources, and encouragement are being directed to where they are most needed, and that the process of learning continues to advance. The cluster agencies in particular see to it that lessons learned in one locality or even in a small portion of it benefit the rest of the cluster. Meanwhile, the approach to sharing knowledge and insights within a cluster is being mirrored by the approach to sharing knowledge and insights among clusters. The swift provision of support and exchange of experience has become possible through the development of arrangements within groups of adjoining clusters. With regional Baha'i councils or a national growth committee now established in every country, the institutional means are in place everywhere for the process of growth to be systematically advanced. And at the national level, when the richness of what is occurring demands it, national assemblies have developed certain structures and spaces to help them keep abreast of what is being learned. Naturally, a new feature would not be introduced unless the needs of growth demand it. Nevertheless, we look to you and your auxiliaries to be alert to when existing arrangements at any level of the community need to evolve to meet the requirements of growth. And then in your interactions with the relevant institutions, to encourage the emergence of new arrangements in a suitable form.
We have also noted how the administrative arrangements that support the work of the Training Institute are evolving in a way that nurtures a process of learning about the accelerated spread of the Institute's programs, delivered with the requisite quality. In the early stages, these arrangements are quite simple, but as the number of those in a cluster serving as tutors, animators, and children class teachers grows, the need for them to engage meaningfully in a collective learning process becomes more pressing. It is vital that they be able to maintain an ongoing conversation with one another, to reflect together in groups, and to support each other in action. These patterns of interaction develop more easily when the friends involved are accompanied effectively by coordinators and the collaborators who assist them. Of course, coordinators themselves also need to be raised up in each cluster and helps to develop their capacity over time. And this is generally the responsibility of regional or national institute coordinators, whose own endeavors, in turn, are increasingly being reinforced by teams of friends for each educational program. In the last 4 years, these teams have done much to assist the regional and national coordinators to organize seminars that explore the content of a program in depth, enabling the Institute's materials to be delivered to larger numbers with ever greater creativity, flexibility, and agility, but without compromising a program's essential components.
All the while, the experience and insights emerging from what an institute is learning are being collected, analyzed, and shared. This work is benefiting greatly from gatherings for consultations, periodically convened by the institute, that bring together auxiliary board members, representatives of the Regional Baha'i Council or National Growth Committee, resource persons from the learning site, and other individuals whose experience has become a valued asset. The meetings of this collaborative group help to strengthen the Institute's connections with other institutions and agencies, ensuring that its learning process unfolds within the broader context of learning about the overall process of growth. The Institute Board is also fostering the strength of all other aspects of the Institute, including its administrative capacity, so that it can sustain a progressively more complex system of spiritual education. And almost all institutes have now been organized into groupings to facilitate the flow of both practical support and valuable insights. The development of these networks has proven to be an important strategy for the institutes to advance rapidly.
It has consistently brought us joy to see the enkindled souls described in our message to your 2021 conference in cluster after cluster and in greater and greater numbers, pursuing the plan with wholehearted devotion and critically a dedication to the process of learning. This is the surest foundation for the progress that needs to be made in the plan's second phase. The processes unfolding in the plan are of course exacting a profound, transformative impact on the individual. What we observe is eager friends learning how to more closely align their pursuits with the will of God. Through engagement with the plan's framework for action, individuals are discovering ways to improve life in all aspects for themselves, for their children, for their wider family, and for their community. There is a heightened spiritual consciousness that leads to a life of purpose and meaning, a life dedicated to developing their God-given potentialities and laboring from the transformation of society. They recognize the value of knowledge in propelling progress, are committed to its generation, and share it freely and humbly. Learning is a habit of mind for them, an orientation in all they do. In every phase they see a fellow seeker after truth. They wholly devote themselves to the spiritual, intellectual, and material advancement of a population. They are not swept, of course, by the world's unabating distractions. Steady do they go, patient and perseverant, pledged to long-term endeavor. And in the company of many others, they are building heavens of peace. It has been seen again and again that as individuals become more conscious of the significance of an expansive pattern of activity in their surroundings, they readily volunteer time and creative energy to develop it further. More generally, believers also help their community by contributing to the fund and offering other types of material resources. While all believers make contributions of this kind, for some believers of means, this is a way of advancing the plan that they are especially well positioned to utilize. Whatever form a person's service takes, it emerges from the unique interaction between, on the one hand, the needs of the faith, and on the other, the possibilities afforded by the circumstances of each individual and the sacrifices that he or she chooses to make.
And the believers increasingly appreciate the privilege of being able to acquaint a soul with the mission of Baha'u'llah. And beyond this, to lovingly help a soul who stands at the doors of the faith to step within. In 2021, we drew attention to this infinitely precious moment in our spiritual journey. We have noted with interest that since then, the friends in many places have focused attention on how to recognize when the city of the heart is open, and on the conversations that lead to this moment and that follow it. Much remains to be learned in this regard, both about how to discern receptivity in different settings and how to acknowledge when it has already matured into faith. Looking back over one's life, there can be no greater joy and comfort than to know that it was spent in acute awareness of the divine remedy, that no effort was spared to proffer that remedy to receptive souls, and that during those fleeting years when opportunity was at hand, even in the midst of difficulties, every chance was seized to respond to humanity's intense need. With ardent longing, we beseech Baha'u'llah, every time we present ourselves at his threshold for the success of all the friends. The Universal House of Justice.
To the Baha'is of the world, dearly loved friends. This is the letter, 4th January 2026. To the Baha'is of the world, dearly loved friends. 5 days of earnest consultations among the continental councillors who are assembled here in the Holy Land for their conference on the next phase of the 9-year plan have reached their conclusion today, and we send you this message at the close of the auspicious gathering, We have heard accounts from the councillors of your many endeavors, the advances being made in settings of all kinds, and how these have contributed to a flourishing process of learning at every level of the community. We have been delighted by descriptions of how, through various collaborative arrangements, the community itself is emerging as a more visible protagonist in the work of the plan. And we have marveled at what is occurring within populations that have a very high level of participation in Baha'i activities, in places where the community's relationship with society is deepening and rapidly evolving.
The significant contribution made to this progress by the councillors themselves, ably guided in all their efforts by the International Teaching Center, is unmistakable. We have been struck by the keenness of their observations and the clarity of their reflections, both infused with their evident love for the communities they serve. The basis for their consultations has been the message we addressed to their conference on its opening day, and which was immediately sent to all national spiritual assemblies so that it could be shared with you without delay. No time has passed before a veritable torrent of reports arrived of the message being studied by groups of eager friends, even those who had gathered for other purposes. We were deeply touched by these widespread evidence of a desire to quickly comprehend what the Baha'i world has learned over the last 4 years and to ascertain what must be done to advance the plan further over the next 5. This will also be the focus of a series of institutional gatherings to be held in the coming months, during which, no doubt, the councillors will share insights that have arisen from their deliberations here.
At Rizvan, the first phase of the 9-year plan will conclude and the second phase will commence. This moment of progression is an ideal time to engage with the numerous souls in whose company the plan was launched 4 years ago and whose number has since expanded to include countless new friends who have been attracted to devotional meetings, educational activities, and other Baha'i initiatives. We invite all to reflect together, whether in dedicated spaces, at regular community gatherings, or within one another's homes, on what has been learned and what has been accomplished. And in contemplating the significance of this global enterprise, we feel sure you will also be moved to consider how your actions and those of your household and your community could help the aim of the plan to be realized.
It is the concern of the True One to reveal, Baha'u'llah has stated, and the concern of the people to spread what has been revealed. The devoted, spirited, diverse efforts being made to carry to every receptive heart what the True One has revealed, to offer hope to a trouble-gripped humanity, to offer the means of being a conscious agent in the work of worldwide spiritual renewal, are an abiding cause for admiration and wonder, for rejoicing and gratitude. Such are the emotions that crowd our breasts at this time, and with which we will entreat Baha'u'llah at his sacred shrine later today to send you blessings from out his measureless grace, the universal house of justice.
Thank you so much for the readers. Dear friends, Alaupa, as we are gathered at this conference, we know very well that the first phase of the 9-year plan is drawing to a close. And as a Baha'i community, we are preparing for the second phase of the 9-year plan. And as we were reminded earlier with Mama Rachel, that this plan is one of the first major undertaking of this series of global plans that spans for a quarter a century. And its overarching aim is the release of society building powers of the faith. And we were reminded at the same time that this offers an opportunity for us to reflect, but at the same time to celebrate and think about where we were at the beginning of the 4 years. And it was very interesting not just to think of where we are now, but how we got here and where we want to go as a community. In its message, its recent message to the Continental Boards of Councillors, 31st December, the House of Justice noted that many third milestone clusters are now acting as reservoirs of knowledge and resources to clusters that surround them, a pattern that has been vital to the process of growth everywhere that must be strengthened and widely replicated. And Mama Rachel also reminded us this morning that for this to happen, it must require the cultivation of capacities that are required to intensify programs of growth, an urgent need if each national community is to meet its goals. This morning, because we don't have much time, we will begin our consultation on what has been learned through the efforts of the communities. And to do that, the first insight that we are going to reflect on, or we are going to explore at this point, is that an essential factor for progress, no matter from what strategic point, is the capacity of the friends at the grassroots to learn together, combining insights gained from their own experience with those of advanced communities nearby or further afield. This insight, as we might have already seen in the message, has been instrumental in raising up the first third milestone cluster in a country or a region. It is closely related to the dramatic accomplishments anticipated by Rizwan that the first third milestone cluster will be established in about 160 countries and regions that did not have this at the outset of the plan. And many with the support of the home front and international pioneers. I think it brings a lot of joy and happiness to know that in this gathering here, we've got some of the international pioneers. I think we have some from South Sudan, and I think we have some of the home front pioneers as well. This session, which is a very short one, will be an opportunity to consult on what has been learned in this regard, how the friends in these clusters are learning together, and how they are incorporating insights from advanced communities while avoiding the pitfall of applying formulas. How we are reading evolving realities and adopting approaches suited to local conditions. How is the capacity to continue action, reflection, and continual consultation being developed and supported, and how it is impacting progress of communities. As we begin our consultation, I would like to encourage you to be generous in your sharing, while also be mindful of time. We hope to hear from as many friends as possible, and to make this feasible, we ask each contribution to be limited to about 3 minutes, at most 5 minutes. When you see me standing, please take it as a gentle indication that your time has come to a close. It is our sincere hope that many friends will feel inspired to raise their hands and contribute to the consultation. While we may not be able to invite everyone to speak, we deeply value the spirit of participation and the insight each person brings to this gathering. So friends, I now take this opportunity to invite your participation to this consultation, which will focus on paragraph 1 and 2. And so you can raise up your hand and you'll be invited to share.
Okay, I'll just give a short narrative about the Central Region, where we were before the first phase started. And indeed, where we were before the first phase started, we were a bit too low, whereby when we attend these gatherings, we feel as if we do not have activities to share about. But after...
Is it possible to stand, please?
Thank you. Okay, but after attending gatherings and spaces, we learned a lot and started implementing within our region. So from the gatherings, we started coming up with activities one by one. And when you look at our region currently, is not where we were 4 years back the line. In addition to that, we were accompanied by Northwest Cluster, whereby we attended activities that were taking place in the Northwest Cluster. When we come back to our region, we put our heads together with agencies, institutions that are present, and started implementing on the activities within our region. So this led us to go down deep the clusters, read the reality of the cluster, and implement according to the culture of that cluster. You find that even if we are deploying pioneers, we have to go read the reality of that cluster, then deploy the pioneer. We don't just leave the pioneer to move by its own. So we also take a team to stay with the pioneer for 2 weeks so that they can read the reality together and start implementing activities. And by the end, you will find that within the 2 weeks, activities will start cropping up. Like recently, we had the Kedoa cluster, whereby we deployed a pioneer, but after some time, the pioneer was unable maybe to get in contact with the people living within the surrounding. So after sending there a team, now activities are cropping up. Also, we talk about the gatherings, the conferences. We were called upon by Northwest Region, attended the Women Conference. After attending the Women Conference, we come back to our region with other ladies, put our heads together, and start coming up with conferences. So far, we have had 2 conferences, whereby the first conference, the participants were 60 plus. And the second conference that took place last year, we were having at least 60 plus, but the hosting cluster, we find that the participants, the number was too low. So the Women Committee of Nakuru cluster put their heads together, learn together, and think, what are we going to do next? So we started home visits. So we visited a number of our friends. One of them is Mrs. Chemos, whereby after meeting with her, shared with her, and she felt that she's part of us and came back to activities. Also, these women sat down and think, what are we going to do? So we are having activities for social action, whereby on Sunday, we have a group that is going to plant kales for the women so that we can generate some income to support the activities. And in addition to that, we are also contributing 200 shillings each, whereby we want to start a poultry project. And every Sunday, because we find that other ladies, they really don't have time to attend the intensive studies, and therefore we have a deepening session so that we can deepen ladies on the program of growth. And currently we can see
Dahlia, you
a
can
notable
also look at
change.
my end. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'll read the names of 3 friends who are going to follow. So we have Maria, if we can take the mic to where Maria is. And then there is Misrai. Is that how you pronounce the name? From Ethiopia, yes. And then we will have, maybe we take those ones and see how it goes. Does Maria have a mic?
Yes. Hello, my dear friends. I'll share my reflections on the first paragraph. And the House of Justice has mentioned the energy with which the Baha'i community and the Friends really launched the plan. That was launched by these 10,000 gatherings. Of course, we know from our communities, they happened at different levels. Some being held at the local community, some being held at the cluster level, and the impact that was brought. So in these gatherings, we find that much of the effort was directed towards helping friends to understand the objectives and the special character of the plan. Now, from these gatherings, we are able to see a lot of impact, and from these local communities, they rose up to start fulfilling the aims of the plan. So some of the swift actions that followed, we are to first understand the goals of the plans in different parts. For example, in the regions, what were the goals for the movement of clusters, and what strategies were needed in order to fulfill the goal. So, for example, we put much of the effort in the opening of more clusters. For example, in our region, where we are working with only 8 clusters by then, much of the effort was put to opening more clusters, and where we had only 1 milestone 3 cluster, much also of the effort was put to raising more milestone 3 clusters, especially in groups of adjoining clusters. So from 1, we have now 5, and those representing the groups of adjoining clusters. Of course, by Ridvan, we anticipate also to have maybe more than that as we put more effort. And as a country, we have helped in these 4 years to raise 47 milestone 3 clusters. And of course, we have seen the value of using this strategy of pioneering. In the regions where the capacity was not yet developed, we have seen a kind flow of resources from the most advanced regions. My region is one of them that really benefited from the Western region. We really thank God, and we are now developing our own capacity to raise the pioneers. Another thing that is being said here is the effort that was directed towards strengthening milestone 3 clusters that existed so that they could develop capacities to be able to serve as a reservoir to other surrounding areas. So towards this goal, in each of our region, we identified 2 clusters, one representing an urban clusters and the other one representing rural clusters. We called them effort to raising the giant clusters. So the effort is still underway, but we have seen much of the capacities being developed. We are not there yet, but understanding the value of these clusters, so many resources are being directed towards those. Thank you.
So after, who was the next person? Yes, after him we'll have Wayne. So if the mic can get Wayne. And please keep raising your hand at any moment. Just make sure we have eye contact when your hand is up. We will put it down.
Allah, dear. So I am reflecting on the first chapter about the strengthening the third milestone cluster, how it looked like in our country. So starting from the beginning of the 9-year plan, so our focus is to strengthen the third milestone cluster in both regions, south and north. So Addis Ababa is the third milestone cluster in the north and Batu is in the south. So at the beginning of the 9-year plan, so we did a reclustering, and the national community aspired to have 850 clusters. So in order to achieve this goal, so with a lot of population of as Ethiopia, 130 million people, so we have a strategy to devise. So we divide the country into sub-regions, 7 sub-regions, and Addis Ababa is in one of the sub-region in the central region. So raising this third milestone cluster is vital and important, strengthening them to support other clusters, to open other clusters with adjoining and the third milestone clusters to be raised or to be anticipated to have in all those sub-regions. So what we did is we have to give a lot of attention to these third milestone clusters and to strengthen them with human resources and knowledge and insights, so that the proper dissemination of system will be placed and to raise those clusters or sub-regions to have a third milestone cluster. So what we did is our experience. So from this, the first phase of the 9-year plan, we give a lot of attention to youth. So these are the most widely receptive population. So in the center of intense activity that Addis Ababa and Batu has, so we are raising a lot of human resources from youth. So we have a rhythmic youth movement. We had a very cyclic youth spaces that will invite also from other sub-regions and also adjoining clusters. So we had also a very strict seminars to raise those resources, like tutors of book 3, book 5, and book 7, and there are a lot of gatherings held. So in Addis Ababa also, so while focusing on the center of intense activity, we have not missed also the concentrated efforts of the generality of the believers. So in nucleus, so thinking the population as a nucleus in network of families, so we have a rhythmic also nuclei gatherings, urban nuclei gatherings at a neighborhood level to disseminate the learning and also to invite from other cluster, adjoining clusters and friends from the sub-regions. So we identified selected strategic clusters also in those sub-regions. So these efforts so the urban nuclei gatherings is happening in the reservoir cluster in Addis Ababa. So even from southern region, people are invited also to come and to learn and take to their clusters. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So kindly take the mic to Wayne. After Wayne, we will have Foster. And then if time allows, we will have Rebecca.
Hello, friends. As you know, Eritrea is in the East Africa, in the Horn of Africa, a very small country. Before the 9-year plan, we didn't have much exposure with though we receive letters and messages from the house, but we don't have a real experience. By the process of accompanying, we have accompaniment from Ethiopia, a full support, and friends go there and see the process, and we have gained a lot from that. Then Also, we have the pioneers who come to Eritrea. We have only junior youth, not youth. No, because of the situation of Eritrea, we didn't have much youth. But intensively, they gave the youth the junior youth programs. Then they start the Ruhi process. Now they are giving. They raise tutors from them, and they are giving the Ruhi classes. So we are doing a little bit progress. Eritrea is divided into 28 clusters, but recently we are working at 5. One of them is Asmara, which is trying to reach the 3rd milestone. We have, even before we have the devotional meetings, but we are giving assistance to everybody to have his devotional gathering at his home. And there is a strong women movement. They are doing their best. But the thing is, though we have been a bit lagging, now we are getting a focus from the government, and some friends are also invited to have their contribution in the education process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because when he was a bit short, I'll bring in South Sudan, and then we'll go to Uganda. So we have Peter from South Sudan. Peter, if we can take the mic to Peter. Someone could take the mic to Peter.
I'll share about South Sudan. South Sudan is also a small country when it comes to activities. As pioneers, we went there in 2023, and we are 6 pioneers, 2 in Juba, 1 in Pajok, and 2 in Torit. So we have been seeing on how we can respond to the divine plan of raising a milestone 3 cluster. But among the 3, we have seen that Torit is one which is showing promise to achieve the objective. So to share about Torit, we found Torit when all activities were down, nothing was happening. So as pioneers, we started the conversation with the local population with the aim of creating a stronger nuclear of friends. So with all those efforts, we managed to assist the friends to start developing, starting activities, creating institutions, and then agencies. By now, Torit, which we found, we've only 4, which we started with 4 local nuclears, but now we have 25 nuclears who are serving in different areas. And then because of the teaching we did there, we found when the cluster had only 9 Baha'is, now we have 47 Baha'is. And then we have a local spiritual assembly, which we did not find there. We have area teaching committee and the local spiritual, and then the institute, the cluster institute coordinator. So all that achievement has been the support of the administrative committee, the resource person, and then the visits to advanced clusters. Advanced cluster, particularly northwest of Kenya, you have did a lot. You need to clap for you. You have supported us a lot. So we thank you for your support. And then where we are looking to see that with this remaining 3 months, Didvan 2026, we want to see Torit in milestone 3. Thank you.
Foster, if we can take, where is Foster? So, Rebecca, you are the mercy of Foster. So,
Hello. My name is Foster from Uganda. And my reflection is going to revolve around the insights that have emerged in the northern region of the country. This region is comprising of 68 clusters, and of these 68 clusters, they are placed in 4 sub-regions and 15 groups of adjoining clusters. I will give a little moment to talk about the movement of clusters since the beginning of the plan. If we look at the beginning, we had 16 programs of growth in the region. And of these 16, we had 12 in the intensive programs, of which 10 have passed the 3rd milestones. Then, as we talk now, we have 34 clusters in the programs of growth, of which 28 have intensive programs of growth, and 12 have passed the 3rd milestone. Then, if you look at also the degree of prevalence based on the goal that we are working for, in terms of having the 3rd milestone clusters in the region, at the beginning of the plan, we already had, of the 15 groups, 8 had milestone 3 clusters. And as we talk now, we have opened all the 15 groups of adjoining clusters, and 9 of these groups have clusters in the 3rd milestone. And 6, we are working for the 6, of course, the clusters. There are already programs of growth. Bringing to this account, we use a number of strategies for the movement of these clusters. One of the foremost strategies was drawing from the sacrificial efforts of the home front pioneers. And these pioneers were drawn from the most advanced clusters, and all their process of orientation, giving them support revolve around this most advanced cluster. And just to wrap it up, or in terms of the pioneering area, we also, as we talk now, we have 22 pioneers, but we raised in total 25. And these pioneers, we also strategize their deployment. One of the approach that was used is to see that we use them to open virgin groups of adjoining clusters, but also to reactivate clusters that have plateaued. Then the third approach was to saturate clusters in the most advanced groups of adjoining clusters, where some clusters were not yet open. And just to also reflect a little bit on these efforts, also we were able to use teaching as one of the strategies to move these clusters. And because of this, with the support of the Regional Baha'i Council, the auxiliary board members, and the rest of the believers, these have impacted greatly on the number of enrollment in the region, but also the growing capacity and the number of the local spiritual assembly. As we talk now, beginning of the year, we had 10 local spiritual assembly in the region, and currently we have 37. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor. So we will give Rebecca 2 minutes. I think Rebecca is at the very back, if the mic can be taken there.
This is Northeast Kenya. The learnings are derived from a cluster called Abudhuguchi West. So in the first phase of the 9-year plan, since 2021, we had a gradual growth. So we had a challenge in the enrollment of the elder population due to the affiliations with the churches. And so the cluster decided to focus on the younger population, of which the last 4 years, we have put more efforts on the junior youths and the children classes. So, and we have been encouraging them to fully participate in the program, which we were able to maintain 14 participants through the junior youth program, and we managed to cover 14 texts, and they all transited to the main sequence, of which they have done books 1 up to book 3 grade 1, and they have invited their friends, and during the study, the 8 participants from these groups, from this group, have declared their faith to Baha'u'llah. So these youth have become the pillar of the community, in that they are assisting with the children classes, home visits, coordinating with the older youths, participation in mobilization and teaching of the faith, both individually and collectively. So another avenue that has actually helped with the group of faith is the appointment of the Baha'is as an official in charge of education in the clan. So this has been of an advantage to the Baha'i community since the appointment in June 2025, of which the Baha'is are invited every meeting to engage the youth, junior youth, and older children, children of both spiritual and material education, and other topics that needs attention. So these meetings are usually happening every month. So the plans are ahead of us on how we'll engage everyone in the upcoming school holidays. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. Friends, we come to a conclusion of this session. If you check your program, we need to go for a tea break now. And we'll meet for the next session after tea break.